John Rogers. I started Rogers Pure Honey the year he was born, 12 or 13 years ago. 13 years ago. And this is John Rogers, the youngest one, and John Rogers, the way oldest one. And he retired and quit his job to come help me. So what we're doing here today is taking these frames of honey out of the boxes. It's two hot knives that cut the wax off the frames to expose the honey. So the other two guys are then scraping the ones the knife missed to expose the honey there. And then they're loading them into the extractors. So when we're done exposing the honey, we put them in an extractor and then we spin them out at a high rate of speed until all the honey comes out of the frames and it's dry. So when they come out, there's no honey left and they're absolutely dry. As the honey goes out of the extractor, it goes down into a little sump pump and the honey gets pumped up to the bulk tank from there. That catches all the wax particles and all the extra stuff that comes out of the hive. All extra stuff from the hive, this is being filtered up and then we scrape that off to just keep the honey clean. So as it gets pumped up to the bulk tank, I go through one step of catching the rest of the wax and the baby bees for an extra filter. Run big deep supers like this for next year's expansion. So we draw out the wax on these for the bees the year prior so they don't have to work as hard in the spring next year. These ones are honey supers. We use these all the time because they fill fast and then they cap them for a low moisture content. Today we're probably going to extract around 3.5 barrels. Each barrel weighs about 625 pounds. So when we get done in the extraction room, we bottle the honey, and I would say about 65% of my honey goes out in individual bottles and the other 35% goes out bulk wholesale. So the finished product when it comes out the bulk tank looks like that. Perfectly clean, clear honey. This year in 2021, we have about 75 locations. Each location has about 16 to 20 hives per spot. And we have approximately 2,000 of these honey supers out this year. Hopefully we'll fill them all. Currently bottling 120 gallons every other day. That's 1,440 pounds of honey every 24 to 48 hours, depending on demand. We're currently distributing honey to local grocery stores in the Baraboo, Madison, Portage, Sauk, and Merrimack areas. We distribute once a week to keep the shelves full, depending on the season. Okay. We buy a whole semi-load of singles, which is 10 frames of bees, and we split that in half and give the new customers half of our bees to start their own business. My bees are in California over the winter, and when they come home in the spring, then we split those as well to make our bees twice as much. While we're splitting them, we check for diseases, queen capabilities, and how strong they are to whether or not we want to split them. So to find out whether or not the hive is strong enough to split, we look at the numbers of bees in the hive and the brood pattern that the queen lays. So if it's a good pattern of eggs and larvae and brood, then we're able to split. So after we get done splitting and everything grows, we get out to our pollination contracts, apples and strawberries. And after we move them out of there into our honey production yards, we put those supers on and collect honey until about middle of July. From about the middle of July till probably the end of August, we're extracting honey. So everything we put out for boxes, we bring in to pull all the honey out and make lots of honey. So before we take these to California for the winter, we take these 2 honey supers off, and then we start feeding them and treating them for mites so that they're nice and healthy before they take off to California. When we use a smoker, we just put a little bit of smoke in the entrance, and when we open it, we put a little bit of smoke in the top. That covers up the pheromone of the bees that say to attack. So we should be able to open this up without getting stung. With these guys anyway. After we have the honey supers off and fed and treated, these are in stacks of 4 on a skid, and then they stack 3 high, and we put them on a semi. 408 hives per semi load. After we get it stacked up, we put a giant net over it, and it keeps the bees from flying out on the highway. And they're headed to California for the almond pollinations. We get on load with about 25 other semi loads of bees with a contractor in California, and they start blooming in late February, and the bees come home probably usually right around March 31st. When I first started, I wintered my bees in Wisconsin, and we would lose anywhere from 50 to 70% of our bees. Sending them to California, we're able to lose maybe 30% max, and on a good year, maybe 5%. But when we feed our bees, most commercial operations use high fructose corn syrup. It's a blend of 55. Depending on the strength of the hive and how much food it has stored, we could feed these guys once a week, a gallon a week, and sometimes a gallon every other day. We will replace a frame in the hive with a frame feeder. This holds approximately a gallon of feed, and on a hot, good day, a hive will take down a whole gallon of feed. So we are just a normal packing facility right now, but with the help of Compeer, we're going to transform this into a commercial packing facility and get our commercial packing license. First step will be to drop the ceiling down to 14 feet, take all the wood off the walls, and put milk house board in the whole facility. The extraction room will look similar to this bottling room. This is a commercial kitchen. Having a commercial kitchen allows me to buy honey, and then it allows me to add flavors. In order to add flavors or buy other people's honey, you need to have a commercial packing license. Compeer gave me a loan for this bad boy. Now I was able to double my business in 1 year because of it. I started my business 13 years ago with 7 hives. I'm currently running about 800 to 1,000 hives. In the next 3 years, I want to be around 25 to 2,700 hives.
Hey everyone, this is my 60 frame Cowan honey extractor. This is my guy Al. He is scratching the frames. Frames come through this machine up here. It's called the uncapper. Takes the wax coating off of these frames. Wax is on top, honey underneath. If the uncapper doesn't get it all, Al scratches the rest of the wax off of there. All the frames come down here on this conveyor. Comes down to the end here. Open the hood. This is the actual part of the machine that spins the honey from the frames. Open the gates. Slide the spun 30 frames out, you slide a new 30 in. These completely empty of honey. This machine runs about a 10-minute cycle it takes to spin all the honey from the frames each round. Does 60 frames at a time. I started with one that did about 30 frames at a time, and we've upgraded to this one since. If we run all day, we can do probably 12 to 15 barrels, depends on how much honey's in the frames that we're doing. Once the honey's spun from the frames, it goes down through the bottom, it goes into this holding tank here, where all the wax settles to the top and it goes underneath the baffles, and it works its way to the far end where it's pretty much clean of wax and debris. And then there's a sump float that monitors the level of the honey. Once the pit reaches a certain level, the pump kicks on and it pumps the honey up this tube over here. Up that tube, across the ceiling, into our holding tank in the other room. This is our 300-gallon holding tank, holds about 5 barrels of honey. Most of the stuff we do here is bulk production, so we fill this tank up normally about 3 times a day, and then we just put it in 55-gallon drums. Our honey is in this tank. We let it settle for a couple hours to let all the debris rise to the top, and then we put it in these 55-gallon barrels, and that's how we sell our honey, bulk production. Most of our honey goes to other commercial beekeepers around the state, Illinois and Minnesota. They bottle it, and then they sell it in the stores. So this is our setup for our feeding. We feed the bees high fructose corn syrup, a special blend specially made for honeybees. We keep it all in this tank. We normally buy about 50,000 pounds at a time. They start in this tanks. We use these pumps to pump it into these smaller tanks, and then the guys will go out and feed the bees according to what they need. This is a division board feeder for honeybees. Goes inside the hive. This one right here holds about 1.5 gallons of syrup. We feed the bees. It depends on the time of year, but most hives get fed anywhere between 4 and 8 times a season throughout the whole year. I feed 50,000 pounds in a truckload. We do probably about 10 loads a year. Season starts when the bees come back from almonds, which is normally around the 1st of April, give or take there, and then it goes until they get shipped back to California for almonds, starting about the 1st week of October. This is one of my bee yards. This yard has about 40 colonies in it, about 1 million honeybees in this yard. I have about 230 to 250 locations in about 10 counties throughout the state of Wisconsin. We run about 10,000 colonies of bees. Most of our revenue comes from pollination. We do cranberry pollination, almond pollination, and we also sell a lot of bees in the spring to other startup beekeepers, other commercial guys that had bad winter losses. So this honey is actually honey you eat like this straight out of the comb. You don't run it through the extractor, it's edible as is. So that's honeybees. All that stuff you see that's capped, that's all brood, the dark brown stuff. Let's see see the queen on there. I started my business 9 years ago, and I started with 100 hives. And every year since then, I've grown, expanded. Now I have about 10,000 hives. I don't plan on growing any larger than that per se. I'm very happy where I'm at. When I first started my business, I had zero credit. I didn't have bad credit, I just didn't have any established credit. Compeer gave me my first operating loan, and I started at $50,000, and every year I've progressively paid that back, built my credit, worked that up, and I think this last year my operating loan was at $600,000. Compeer for all my taxing, accounting, payroll services, basically anything that I need. For the most part, Compeer is my go-to, and I'm very happy with everything they've done with me.